Hi, today's lesson is on factoring simple trinomials. Let's recall, we talked about expanding binomials. So when we're expanding binomials, we have two binomials multiplied together. We're going to use FOIL to expand it. I'm not going to write the intermediate steps, but I'll put the final expanded form here. If you're following along, taking notes, I would say pause the video and write down all of the expanded forms for each one. Now let's examine the factored form and the expanded form. What are the similarities and differences of each of these? So often students will tell me that in the factored form, they notice that there are two brackets, and the two brackets are for binomials multiplying. Another thing that they noticed in this particular chart is that all of the variables and the numeric value of the number is the same. It's that the operations in the brackets are different. Now, let's look at the expanded form. Similarities and differences. The expanded form, we have our answer in an ax squared plus bx plus c form. So this is a trinomial. Expanded form is a trinomial, and also you notice that the c term is all the same. B terms, two of them are the same, and the a term is also the same. Except the only difference is we have different signs in the B's and the C's. So here we have two pluses, and then we have two negative C's. These two, we have the same B value. One is positive, one is negative. And same for the last two, a -2, +2. Now the C term actually tells us quite a bit about the binomials. You'll notice that when we have a C term that's negative, we go back to the factored form, and you see that in the factored form, we have one positive, one negative, or one negative and one positive. So we've got mixed operations. So the first option, when C is a negative, two binomials have mixed operations. When C is positive, we have a positive C. Let's go back to our factored form. We've got the same operations. One of them is plus and plus, another is negative and negative. How do we know whether it's two positives or two negatives? We're going to look at the B, and the B will tell us. So if I have a positive C and a positive B, I have two addition binomials. On the other hand, if I have a positive c and a negative b, I'm going to have two subtraction in the factored form. All right, so knowing what the brackets are, that's already half of the steps needed to factor an expression. So how do we factor a simple trinomial? The first step we did is we have to determine the brackets of the binomials. Then we're going to find factors of c. So what are the numbers that multiply to c that add to the b term? And since factoring is the opposite of expanding, if you expand your factored form, you should get exactly the same as your original trinomial. So let's do this. The first question, we have x squared plus 11x plus 30. We need to determine the brackets. We have c is positive and b is positive. That means I know that the original is going to have two brackets where we're adding things. Next, we're going to find factors of c that add to b. So we have, in this case, c is equal to 30. So my options, 1 times 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. So out of these four pairs, which pair will add up to b? b is equal to 11. The two positive numbers that can add to 11 out of these four pairs is 5 and 6. And so I'm able to throw in 5 in the first bracket and 6 in the second bracket. Or it could be x plus 6, x plus 5. Same thing. Let's do it again for our second question. Part B, x squared minus 3x minus 28. We're going to check the c term. The c term is a negative value. So we know that my original binomials will be mixed. I'm going to have one positive and one negative. Now let's take the factors of c, and it needs to add to negative 3. So I have 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. One number will be negative, one number is going to be positive. So out of this pair, the only thing that will give me a negative 3 is negative 7 plus 4. So I throw in here negative 7 and 4. The last example on this page, we have x squared plus 5x minus 50. Since c is a negative number, I know that my two brackets are going to have mixed operations. So x minus some number and x plus some number. Factors of 50 that add to 5, 5 times 10, that's 50. And if I substituted negative 5 in there, so negative 5 plus positive 10 gives us 5. Now, you can always check your answer again by expanding. So let's do a few more. Part D, x squared minus 10x plus 25. Now, because C is positive, I know that I'm going to have the same operations. Which operation is it? It's whatever B is. B is subtraction, so I'm going to have x minus some number, x minus some number. Right, factors of 25, two negative numbers that add to negative 10. So 5 times 5. X minus 5, x minus 5. Another way we can write this is x minus 5 all squared. Now let's check the answer by expanding. So we have x squared minus 5x minus 5x plus 25, x squared minus 10x plus 25. This is exactly the same as the original trinomial that I had. So I know that my answer of x minus 5 all squared is correct. Two more examples just quickly. X squared minus x minus 90. We're going to decide on the brackets by looking at the C term. C is negative. Since C is negative, I'm going to have mixed operations. Right, factors of 90 that can add to negative 1. One of the factors is positive, one of the factors is negative. Let's do negative 10 and 9, because negative 10 plus 9 gives us negative 1. Last example here, x squared plus 301x plus 300. So I know that it's going to be positive, and factors of 300, if I did 300 times 1, add those two together, we get 301. Okay, for the next couple slides, I'd like you to try this on your own. Pause the video and try it. Here are the solutions for the slides. Now, sometimes you might have to do two steps. There might be a common factor as well. So look at this example. We have 2x squared plus 4x minus 48. Since all of the numbers are even, I know that 2 is a common factor, and I'm going to factor that out. I take the 2, and for everything inside the bracket, I'm going to divide it by 2. Now, I'm not finished yet because inside my bracket, this trinomial is factorable. I'm going to end up having one positive bracket and one negative bracket because I've got a negative c. So factors of 24 that add up to 2, that could be a 6 and a 4. So positive 6, negative 4. Another one, 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. Let's factor it by 4. So 4 bracket x squared minus x minus 30. We're going to continue on. 4 x plus some number and x minus some number. Factors of 30 that adds to negative 1. We could do a positive 5 and a negative 6. Now, if we were to check our answer, let's do this. We would take x squared minus 6x plus 5x minus 30. We're going to simplify inside the bracket first, and then we're going to take the 4 and multiply it in. Since this is the same as the original, I know that this is the correct factored form of this trinomial. Sometimes you can have a common variable. In this case, I've got x that's common to every one. I'm going to factor out the x of x squared plus 7x plus 10. Let's continue to see if we can factor this trinomial. Since I have a positive c, I know it's the same operations. The b tells us it's going to be 2 addition brackets. Factors of 10 that add up to 7. That would be a 5 and a 2. Now, I've factored as much as I can, but I had to do 2 steps. I did common factoring, and then I did trinomial factoring. Right, let's continue on. In this case, I have a 5x cubed minus 10x squared minus 75. I know 5 is common to all of them. I'm going to take out the 5. We have x cubed minus 2x squared minus 15. Now, since this is not a quadratic, meaning this is not an x squared, it's not possible for me to factor any further. I've done as much as I can. So this is all I can do. Once again, you can always check your answer by multiplying it out to expand. Now, sometimes you can have a common term as well. So in this case, I have x minus 1 in each of the terms. So I'm going to factor out x minus 1 and write what I have left. So x squared plus 3x minus 10. I'm going to rewrite the common factor. But now, if I factor this trinomial, because I have a negative c, I know that one bracket is positive, one bracket is negative. Factors of 10 that add to 3, positive 5 and negative 2. The last example we have, x squared minus 5xy minus 14y squared. What we need to do here is we're going to treat the y squared just like we treat the x squared. We're just going to plop it into both brackets. Let's use the rules that we had before. Determine our brackets. I know that one bracket is positive, one bracket is negative because I have a negative c. So I have x plus some number and y, and some number minus x minus y. Now, factors of 14 that add to negative 5, let's have negative 7 and positive 2. Let's check the answer just to show that this works out. Now, when I expand, I would have x squared, then x times negative 7y, negative 7xy, y times x, that's positive 2xy. And once again, it's math convention for us always to write the number first, the coefficient, then we're writing the variables in alphabetical order. Minus 14y squared. Let's collect our like terms. So x squared minus 5xy minus 14y squared. You see how these two, they're the composition of what makes our middle term. And this is why we get the factors of C that add up to B. Okay, slides 15, 16, and 17. Pause the video and try these questions on your own. Solutions now for the questions to try on your own. This is the first slide, second slide, and the third slide. All right, and that is it for today's lesson.